Okay, I want to show you some things that might be helpful for you in doing legal research regarding the class that you will be taking with me. There's a couple of tools that we have in our library, and there's also good old Google. Any academic environment will tell you to be very, very careful using Google. Frequently that's because Google encompasses all of the internet, and not all sources are academically valid, if you will. So we want to make sure that we're using quality resources if we're going to be referencing them and citing them within our work product. That doesn't say that Google is without its purpose, and there's actually features within Google that many people don't know about, and so I want to kind of show you something about Google. If you were to, in front of the word google.com, if you were to put the search or the URL of scholar.google.com, then you would get a different screen. And I want you to note that you see case law and a radio button here, and then you see articles. This is a better search than the generic Google search because this does tend to seek quality resources with regards to its articles, and you have the ability to access case law, which is much more reliable than a generic case law search in the Google engine. So what we want to look at here, if you want to use Google to search cases, sometimes this is good because it's free, it's very user-friendly and easy. The interface is something people are accustomed to, and you can get good cases this way. Now, you can also see that when we select case law, we have federal and Florida courts in my browser that are already highlighted because I use this in these courts. But you also can select any jurisdiction in the country, whether it be state courts or federal courts. And so that's very useful. We're in Florida, so right down here in Florida we have appellate opinions and we have the Supreme Court opinions. You may be familiar with generally the court process from what you've seen on TV, but frequently trials are not in the appellate court or the Supreme Court. Trial level usually doesn't have very many, if any at all, on the state level opinions that are generated. So on the state level, you have trial courts with no opinions that are generated for use in the other courts as precedential. But you do have courts of appeals, and then we also have the Florida Supreme Court. Similarly, from the federal perspective, we have a Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, and then you'll notice it says we have some specialized courts, and it says circuits, First Circuit, Second Circuit, and all these handle 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5 states. We in Florida are in the 11th Circuit, so we are in a circuit with Georgia and Alabama, and these 3 states comprise of the 11th Circuit. In the federal court, these district court opinions are the trial courts for federal courts. So if you had a district court of opinion in Florida, in Jacksonville, say we sued something here locally, or we involved in a lawsuit, then it would be within the middle district of Florida. And this is where the trial level opinion would be. If you were to appeal that, it would go to the 11th Circuit, and it would be right here, or you could choose all of this. Now, 11th Circuit is a court above that is looking at whether or not the trial court made any mistakes in law when it rendered its decision. All of the opinions from the 11th Circuit are binding on all of these courts below it. So if we had a similar case a year from now to the one that was just decided by the 11th Circuit, it could be argued that the court should find the same way the 11th Circuit advised in that prior opinion. So that's called precedence, another legal concept, and the Latin term would be stare decisis. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into our course. And the bottom line here is that I want you to see that you have lots of selections here in terms of the jurisdictions that you want to choose cases, and ours is going to primarily going to be either state or federal law. And candidly, in this course, because we're talking about employment law practices to a high degree, most of the time federal laws are going to be involved, and so we'll be talking about the 11th Circuit and the Supreme Court. Now, I told you the 11th Circuit opinions are binding on all of these lower courts that are within its jurisdiction. But what if a court case is right on point and there's not an 11th Circuit opinion, but there is one in the 6th Circuit? Well, you certainly could cite that, and it might be persuasive, but it's not binding. Okay, so the courts can be persuaded to find similarly to the 6th Circuit or one of these courts in the 6th Circuit, but it's not binding. The 11th Circuit would be binding in terms of any precedential opinion on the courts within its jurisdiction. And all the courts are found to be bound by the U.S. Supreme Court and its decisions. Okay? That's just a general idea and a little kind of discussion on courts and sort of their hierarchy. If we wanted to look up a case, let's pick all of the federal courts, and then let's go to our search string, and we're going to have a case study in this course, and it's going to be called Ricci, R-A-C-C-I, v. DeStefano. And this is a Supreme Court case, as you can see. Supreme Court case from 2009. You'll also find there are other ones here. There's a district court case, so this is on the trial level. And then there's a Court of Appeals 2nd Circuit. Well, this happened in Connecticut, and the 2nd Circuit is one of the states there. So you can see there's opinions that go up regarding this. We're going to be doing a case review on this particular case early in the course. And so if you know the name of a case, then you could look it up just like that. But you don't have to just know the name of a case. You might have a legal concept you're interested in. Let's say we want to understand what respondeat superior is. Now, respondeat superior, R-E-S-P-O-N-D-E-A-T, superior, is a concept that you see referred to in different cases. Respondeat superior theory. Okay, so based on a theory of respondeat superior. Okay. They may not be held liable for the unconstitutional conduct of their subordinates under a theory of respondeat superior. So you can look at and put in a concept or a legal or Latin term that you think is a legal concept and find cases that will discuss it, and hopefully you can learn it that way. Another thing you could do is you could go to articles here, and then in the articles put in respondeat superior and find actual articles that are usually going to be in the law review, like this is the Law School Washington Lee Law Review. There's others here, Fordham Law Review. Okay, so you can go down here and take a look at these articles that are written to explain the doctrine of respondeat superior. Okay, and we'll talk about that as we get into our course, but just trying to show you the utility of Google Scholar. Now, Google Scholar is a very good starting place. It's not an area that I would want to focus your research on because we have other tools, but this is out there, it's easily available, and it's very comprehensive in terms of finding cases and finding articles that may discuss concepts. So because it's so easy, it's certainly something you can look at. Alternatively, you can look at the library, and there's lots of ways to get around and find the library and do research. And if you go to the current students tab on the University of North Florida's homepage, and then here to library, you can get to the main library page. And then right in here you can see where it says find databases. And when you find databases, there's a whole huge list, almost 350 databases that you can search. There's one that I really think is important for you to know about, and it's under L for LexisNexis, also called Nexis Uni. Okay, same one. I think you click on that, and then you have to put in your sign-in credentials, what the screen will look like. And there's a couple of things that I want to kind of show you here. For the Nexis Uni, this is a legal database. It's very in-depth. This is the academic version. They have other versions that kind of specialize in legal research. But this is very valuable. You have your cases. You also have law reviews broken out, so you can look for concepts in law reviews. Here, you would choose a case. In that case, we'll say a federal case. And let's put in Ricky v. DeStefano again and search for that. And here it gives us 13 results. You'll see that this has a red stop sign that says negative treatment is indicated. Now, this particular opinion is from the Second Circuit. The reason that it's red is because the Supreme Court opinion, which is down here, overruled it. Okay? And some of the aspects from the trial are found to be problematic, so there's possible negative treatment here. So one of the differences between Google Scholar and LexisNexis is that you get a indicator as to whether or not it's good law or may potentially not be good law. And you can research and make sure that the cases and the positions that you're arguing about are valid. So here we're going to look at the U.S. Supreme Court opinion. And another aspect that's different is that it gives you more information. It gives you subsequent history, etc., and then an opinion. Now, this particular opinion was that we're taking the case, so that's not the one we're looking for. This one here, which was several months later, isn't the one we're looking for. It says we're going to have oral argument. And so we want to look for the Supreme Court case where it was decided. And if we narrow it to just the Supreme Court cases, then real quickly, this one here on April 3rd, I think, is probably the last one. June. Okay, but that was, yeah. So this particular case is the one that we're talking about. And you see it's considerably longer than those brief procedural opinions that were given in this case. So here there's some possible negative treatment in terms of courts that may express that they don't agree with this for some reason, but this is a pretty interesting case, and we'll talk a lot about it early in the course. The differences are you get these flags, like I indicated earlier. You get information about the history, things that might have happened afterwards. And then further down, you get core terms, so you can get a feel for the types of issues that were related in the case. And then you get a case summary. Now, the case summary is put together by a lawyer or an academic, and what they do is give you the overall procedural posture, overview, and the outcome of the case. So this isn't the actual opinion. This is an academic trying to make it easy for you to quickly look at the case and decide if it's going to be valuable for you and what you're trying to research. After that, also besides case summary and core terms not being in Google, is something that they call head notes. Now, head notes are awesome. Essentially, they are pulling out the important legal concepts and assigning them a head note, and then putting them here. So all of the important legal concepts are laid out for you. And so we will look at this throughout the course, so I'm not going to spend time now, but you can see we're talking about all sorts of aspects that might be important for us if we were to cite this case for another opinion. And then here's where the decision starts. Okay, and so more head notes, and then here we are, the syllabus. Okay, and then it discusses the case. So there's just a lot more information in a legal database. There's also all of these, you see these blue links. So if you ever want to see what the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment was, you can bring up that link and it should show it to you. So you have links to things within the case that might be valuable to you. But there might be other cases that the court is relying upon. It might be specific provisions, in this case of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, and so it would bring up a copy of that. So there's just a great deal here that brings additional value beyond a Google search or even a Google Scholar search. So I thought it would be valuable for you to look at the database here and see if you have any questions. Now, one other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to bring up a Word file, and I want to kind of show you another aspect that's going to be important with regards to writing in this course. See right here the name of the case, Ricci v. DeStefano, and then there's these numbers afterwards. That is part of the citation. You can export the citation, and there's a lot here in terms of exporting the citation. But I kind of wanted to break it down for you so that you could get a feel for what all this stuff means. Ricci di Stefano is the name of the case. Frank Ricci is the plaintiff and De Stefano is the defendant. Okay. Typically, when you see those cited, the name of the case will be underlined. Okay. After that, you see there's a lot of other information that is given here. 557 U.S. 557. What does that mean? Okay, these decisions, when they are rendered and they're written out by the courts, then they are published in what's called a reporter, which is just a big series of books. If you've ever seen commercials with lawyers in front of books with those big leather covers that all look the same, those are called reporters, and there's lots of different reporters. The Supreme Court has three main reporters that publish its opinions. One is called the U.S. Reporter, and so this is the reporter. Another one is the Supreme Court Reporter, and then the last one is Lawyer's Edition, second, or Lawyer's Edition Reporter. Okay, so those are three very prominent reporters that report U.S. Supreme Court cases. Other cases in other jurisdictions have other reporters. For instance, in Florida, there's what's called the Southern reporters. Okay, and so you'll see Southern. So the middle part of this here citation is the reporter. And what you would do if you were going to look this case up in the reporter is you would go to volume 557 and you would turn to page 557 to find the first page of Ricci di Stefano. Pretty simple. So that is one way in which you can find the case in books, and the citation is to give you direction to find it. If you were going to the Supreme Court Reporter, you go to the reporters to volume 129 and turn to page 2658, and that would be the beginning of the case. So let's say we had about 10 pages down a part of this opinion that we wanted to quote in our work product. The way we would cite that is we would say Ricci v. DeStefano, and then you would give the volume number of what reporter, and then the page number that it starts at, then comma, and then if it's 10 pages back, 567 would be the pinpoint site. And then after that, you would put, because this is a Supreme Court case, just the year that it was rendered. Okay? Now, in contrast, let's make up a case in Florida in state court. I'm just going to make it up. So we'll say Smith v. Jones. Okay, Smith is the plaintiff suing Jones, the defendant. And I told you the reporter is usually a southern reporter for Florida. Okay, right now we're on Southern Third, and so there are actually so many opinions that they break them down into editions. So here we would go to volume, let's just make up a number, 26 of the Southern Second Reporter, let's say, and page 515. And then say 3 pages back on 518 was a pinpoint site. Biggest reason I'm showing you another case on the state level is because unlike the Supreme Court where there's only one Supreme Court, there's lots of trial courts. Okay, so one of the things that we might do here, or appellate courts, one of the things we might do here is say that this came out of the Florida First DCA, which is a Florida First District Court of Appeals in 2015. Okay, so you identify the court, the date, the year of the opinion, if you will. You have exactly where to find it in a book. The first page of it, of the Smith v. Jones case, would be on page 515 of volume 26. And if you went 3 pages back to 518, that's where you would find the specific quotation that you'd put in your work product. Okay, so that's kind of a quick overview of some things that might be useful for you in terms of writing and understanding what citations mean and how those are put together. Hope you found this valuable for you. I look forward to seeing you in class. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.